At times, Dr. Phil went full savage mode. Whether we want to believe it or not, Dr. Phil is a television series that is bad to the bone. However, it's intriguing to know that a YouTuber named Bill Smith found out that it had become a downright sublime show, due to the fact that most of the dialogues were edited out, and the episodes strictly consist of those awkward moments of pauses that comprised of a large amount of the show's runtime. So there's no doubting that the show is a magnum opus of some weird YouTube editing. Leave a like right now. Also, subscribe and turn on notifications. If you have left a like on the video and subscribe to the channel, also leave a comment saying, "I subscribed," and I'll reply to as many of you as I can, saying thank you. But why is it bad? Although a handful of people have been on his show and taken his advice to heart, it seems that there are a number of people who are from the opposite category, and they feel that there's something seriously amiss with Phil's advice. There are various instances where it has been proved as a fact. In one such instance, Dr. Phil told a young boy's mother that her son could get back on the straight and narrow. This is because her son looked more like a Barbie. Nonetheless, he seems to have given this advice as he wants all the sons to grow up straight. The reason for this is simple. Who wouldn't want one that is as straight as Dr. Phil, filling gossip blogs with marital woes and a sense of style, begging for queer intervention? But not all agree with this advice. There is no question of gender bias, but it is rather a question about the advice given by Dr. Phil to the mother of a 5-year-old. He says that she should not panic and act as quickly as possible in order to prevent having a gay son. Dr. Phil, a dose of bad medicine? The National Alliance for Mental Illness has alleged that Dr. Phil called a child a serial killer in the making on primetime television and says that he ought to have his head checked. And it is also said that such statements could put the lives of children at risk. NAMI said that not only did the show represent bad ethics, but it also may have accounted for malpractice. In fact, Dr. Phil's conduct on that particular episode of the show, and in some other episodes, has been deemed as so serious that it calls for an investigation warrant from a licensed board or authority. This misconduct has occurred so much so that he has even gone to the extent of offering a definitive diagnosis without careful evaluation or referral. What's more, a spokesman has even said that the child had been referred to various psychologists and has sought extensive medical and psychological attention, but all of them have ruled out the possibility of a mental illness. Dr. Phil chose to educate the parents on the familial aspects, but only after reviewing the child's case with independent psychologists and physicians. According to the website, however, Dr. Phil is known to have a PhD in clinical psychology and is a certified clinical psychologist since 1978. What is the segment that is under fire all about? The segment is called A Dr. Phil Primetime Special, Family First, and involves a 9-year-old boy named Eric. It aired on September 22nd and is a 2-hour special wherein the family has been filmed for days. It can be seen clearly that Dr. Phil takes down notes based on the tapes and then delivers his diagnosis to the parents. He says that acts of violence don't just come out of the blue like that. There are signs that show them in the child's behavior. He also says that there are 14 traits of serial killers for the most violent of criminals, and he said to the parents of the boy, Eric, that he had 9 of the 14 traits. His mother has said that Eric likes to beat up his little sister, watch her lips bleed without the slightest thought of remorse. She says that he also likes to expose himself to her, and that he stole a pocket knife from a friend, and that he has a fascination with fire once it is ignited in the kitchen. His father, however, has a different view altogether. He says that this kind of behavior is typical of a boy and that it could be due to sibling rivalry or even a prank. Dr. Phil says up front that in the father's viewpoint, this is all some sort of biochemical process that he has desperately got diagnosed from people hoping to find a solution for it, but have failed to find one. Dr. Phil gets angry behind the scenes. A former TV producer who was working for Dr. Phil said that she and 300 other employees were locked away in a room by the famous psychologist. Leah Rothman, who had been a segment producer on the Dr. Phil show for over 12 years, has sued the host for falsely imprisoning and causing her emotional distress. According to reports from the lawsuit, Dr. Phil was angry at the show's producers for leaking behind-the-scenes details to the press. He said that he locked them away because he wanted to find the culprit or the mole. Rothman has claimed that Dr. Phil forced her to come to the office on her day off so that she could join the others. Dr. Phil locked them away and told them to turn off their cell phones while the doors were allegedly locked by the security guards. According to the lawsuit, the psychologist told them that if they ever tend to mess with him, then he will definitely mess with them. Rothman is reported to have seen cue cards in Phil's hands and was later told by the executive producer that he got a certain sense of joy out of locking away the employees. In the lawsuit, however, Rothman has said that Dr. Phil all the while knew who the culprit was and did it only to scare the employees so that no one may leak information in the future. Anger. Now, Dr. Phil is a guy who has to deal with a lot of anger, and normally he is able to take all of that on with a calm head. But sometimes it so happens that even he gets angry. On one such episode, he is trying to solve a dispute between two women. But after continuously trying to do so, he figures that one of them just keeps interrupting him by talking over the other. And so it's understandable that he gets angry. People go to the show to get help, but how can he help them if they don't keep quiet? So he disrupts the fight with the wise words that his father always used to tell him, that he should never miss a chance to shut up abuse. Dr. Phil proved in this very episode that not only does he look out for people, but also for animals. A woman named Jessie and her father and stepmother Laura came onto the show. Jessie claimed that Laura was such an animal lover that she kept around 50 animals all around her home. The animals were in awful living conditions, and Laura says that this is the least amount of animals she has ever had and doesn't view it as a problem. After viewing the clip, Dr. Phil had one of his staff members call animal control to get those abused dogs out of the house. He told the staff member to keep calling until the dogs were removed from that environment. And so, we come to know that Dr. Phil doesn't put up with animal abuse. Leave. In this particular episode, Dr. Phil is talking to a 21-year-old named Bailey, and they're talking about her relationship with another woman that she has never met but claims to be in love with. She tells Dr. Phil she is writing the love story of this century about her and that woman, who she doesn't even know. The audience responded to this by giving a light chuckle. The woman Bailey then gets annoyed and says that they can all laugh at him and he will be their spectacle. And for that, Dr. Phil says that he thinks that the show should shut down because he didn't like the melodrama that was going on. And not to mention the woman playing the victim. The woman responds by saying that she is not going to be a part of it. However, all of a sudden, she realized that Phil was not putting up with her, and the tears just disappeared and she apologized. Dr. Phil then called her manipulative and that he will not deal with it, and asked her to be escorted off the stage. He says that it had gone too far, and that he is going to talk with her mother and that she should go home. Greed. If there's one thing that Dr. Phil can't stand, it's greed, or greedy people, or when his staff gets abused. And this guy seemed to do both. Dr. Phil not only pays for his guests' flight tickets, but he also pays for their stay at the hotel before they film the show. And for some people, that is not good enough. They expect their food expenses to be covered as well, just as this guest did. After all, he should be grateful that he is getting help from a doctor with over 25 years of experience in psychology, sociology, and observation for whatever issue that it is you have, right? So, this man racially insulted Dr. Phil's producer and called the staff at 5 a.m, saying that he needed cash. So, of course, Dr. Phil called him out on all of this on national television. He asked him if he had called the staff of the show at 5 a.m, asking for cash so that he could move around Los Angeles. Shut up. This is from an episode called World's Worst Mother. On this episode, we have a woman and her mother and the woman's ex-husband. And just as it happened in many cases, They just can't seem to keep quiet when Dr. Phil is trying to talk. So he calls them out and tells the ex-husband to shut up. He then goes on to say that he wants to give a voice to people who don't have it, that their child doesn't have a voice, but they sure do, because they won't shut up. Then the ex-husband tries to talk over Dr. Phil, so he puts a binder up to his face and almost yells at him to shut up. Dr. Phil raises his voice and tells the woman's mother to stop talking and that there is no point in talking to her and that he can't help. Now, that's a whole lot of savage, isn't it? Supplying the pot. There sure are some obscure moments out there, aren't there? However, in an ideal situation, if your 14-year-old daughter smokes pot with you and has multiple sexual relationships, then this certainly isn't one of them, right? So, Dr. Phil asked the mother of the girl if she understood that this behavior, by statute, was a crime. So she reacts by saying that she had already explained why she did it that way. Dr. Phil seemed to lose patience when the girl, the daughter, reacted to him in such a manner. Then he turned to CJ, who was the father, to ask him why he let Gabriella stay with Kylie, although he had full custody of her. Earlier in the episode, CJ had mentioned that the only reason he let Gabriella stay with her mother was that she would be able to support her, as her mother was living in a very poor condition. However, the medical director of the Los Angeles Department of Children and Family Services County dropped the hammer on him, and CJ's good intentions failed drastically. For someone who is as cool as a cucumber and as sassy as a snake, Dr. Phil sure does have a lot of fair feedback for his often less sane guests, doesn't he?